everybody, to Survive and Advance on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Survive and Advance is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Make sure you check them out by going through thegruelingtruth.com, clicking on the MyBookie.ag banner at the top of the page for up to a $1,000 cashback bonus on your first deposit. I am your co-host for Survive and Advance, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in my co-host, member of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, 1981 national champion, Steve Risley. How you doing, Steve?
Hey, I'm doing great today, Mike. It's going to be a great day. I think we might get some rain out here today, which is always great when you can get some rain in Southern California. It's always a good thing. Well, and, Mike, have I sent you a picture of my Hall of Fame ring yet?
I believe you did, Steve, as you've sent me a picture of your national championship ring like 27 times.
I send that all the time. Yeah, exactly. But I sent you my Hall of Fame ring because it just came.
Yes, it was one of the more exciting things I've ever gone through. I got all giddy. I would like to turn the tables on you because today in southern Indiana, it is 75 and sunny.
I know. You're going to be warmer than us. We're not going to be that warm today. We're only going to get in the upper 60s today, but we're going to be in the 90s by Wednesday or Thursday. So, I'm sure in in Florida too, they're going to get the heat, and our guest today is going to talk about the humidity that's going to come in down there. We don't get the humidity; we just get the heat. So,
all right. And our guest today is formerly the president of the Orlando Apollos. Help me welcome to the show for the second time, Michael Waddell. How you doing, Michael?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing great. Anytime the weather at my house is better than the weather at Risley's house, that's a good thing because I don't have to hear him brag about it.
Well, that doesn't happen very often, Mike. You don't get that. I mean, I get it. January. I'm thinking, God, it's a cold day at about 65. We put sweatshirts on at 65 out here.
Because you're all sissies out there. But let's go ahead and let's go to Michael. And Michael, we just got done covering March Madness, and I know that your son had a great experience as he's the main team manager for the Murray State Razors, who made it to the second round, pulled an upset in the first round against Marquette. What was that experience like?
Well, I tell you one thing, it was awesome. I mean, Matt McMahon is an outstanding coach there at Murray State. I've known Matt since I was the play-by-play guy at App State, and he was a knock-kneed freshman out of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, back in 1997. And he came over to my house along with the basketball team to watch. I moonlighted with the local cable company doing the little 5-minute local news drop-ins on Headline News. You remember those?
Yeah.
And they gave me free cable and free pay-per-views, so they'd all come over and watch WWE pay-per-views. So, my son was born on August 30th, and about 6 days later they had Survivor Series or something. And my wife's in the other room just fuming because I'm out with my newborn and the basketball team, and Matt McMahon and Drew are sitting right there. Drew's 6 days old, and Matt's holding him. And who knew that, years later, Drew would go to Murray State, would be the head manager for the last 2 years, and would be back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances. And I tell you one thing, it's amazing to me the amount of bad hires that go on in men's college basketball. But the fact that Matt McMahon is still sitting there at Murray State, and Kevin Saul, their new AD, just newly hired out of the University of Kentucky, was able to nab him to an extension. That, first of all, that's the snag of the year. And then you see some of the poor hires that have gone on. Matt McMahon took a program that was good and made it great. He did a better job than Steve Prohm. He did a better job than Billy Kennedy. He did a better job than Nick Cronin, and all those guys have made millions of dollars, and that's just sitting there enjoying life and being smart about not taking the college basketball check out there. But John Morant's a magnificent player. He's going to do great things in the NBA, and he's a good kid. And, character, ability, charm, that really describes both Morant and McMahon. And I hope my kid, got something to rub off on him for those two guys as he goes off to the job world now.
Hey, I got a question for you. Nick Cronin, he's coming to UCLA, correct?
Yeah. Sure, yeah. We hired Nick at Cincinnati back in 2006, at March 2006.
Oh, okay.
Hired him away from Murray. Yeah.
Between both of you, before we get into AAF, because we'll get into that, but Is there anybody who can succeed at UCLA?
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, Ben Howland did a nice job out there for a few years. Larry Brown did a nice job out there for a few years. Of course, he did just like Wooden did, and did some things that were probably not all that, aligned with the rules. The only difference is that, John Wooden got away with it, and, Larry Brown didn't. But we won't talk about the film studios and the nice cash payments to Lou Alcindor back in the day.
Yeah, Sam Gilbert.
What can happen there? I mean, look, if you recruit, if you support the program, you can win. The thing about that was, and I love Mick Cronin to death. I think he'll do a fine job out there because he has an insurgent attitude that just is going to make him succeed no matter where he goes. To the level of that success, that remains to be seen. But how can a guy like Mark Hughes Gonzaga not get a serious look at UCLA?
I think it's because he probably wouldn't leave Gonzaga under any circumstances.
Well,
he's been offered jobs over the last decade.
He's up to the pump.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's up to the pumps who run AAU and everything basketball east of the Mississippi, rather west of the Mississippi, especially west of the Rockies. So, there were a lot of guys that should have been in the mix for that job that weren't, just because they weren't, cozying up to the right folks, and, such is life. And maybe that's one of the reasons why they're not, truly successful at UCLA. I mean, you really feel for Dan Guerrero, the AD there. He'll get a lot of the blame. He'll get all of the blame, but a lot of times it's not really the AD, who deserves the blame and stuff like this. There's too many power people trying to call the shots at places like this. You saw, the names were out there. I don't need to repeat them, but, it's the guy who was really nailed it a few years ago is the former AD at South Carolina and Texas A&M. And he said anybody that wants to be a Power 5 AD today, you either have to have an extreme ego or you have to have some real damage in the head. And, that's proven to be true.
Yeah. Indiana will prove that.
Yeah.
Tough job.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, I mean, we learned yesterday that Devontae Green is leaving.
No, he's not.
No.
He didn't get an agent. He's just going in for them to tell him what he needs to do to improve his game. I don't think he's going anywhere.
All right, well, he shouldn't go anywhere. But anyway, it's just the question, I don't want to dive into Indiana because we have a different show that we do about that. So, but it's another thing where I think Archie Miller in Indiana is just cleaning house. I think he's just dumping everybody and saying, I'm going to build this team how I want to build it and get my players in that I want in there and do that. UCLA, I live out here, and nobody really cares that much about the basketball program anymore like they used to care, I'm sure, at some point in time. But, Mike, back to Cincinnati. How did Dane Fife not get a look, or did he get a look?
Cincinnati has Coach Brannon, who has done an outstanding job at Northern Kentucky University over the last 4 years. And I think that was a slam dunk because Brannon also lives in the area. He's right across the river. I think he's a great fit. I think he might be a better fit than Mick Cronin for the program. And the reason I say that is UC fans are winning 25 games every year and getting mad because they're losing in the first or second round of the tournament. I think if there's anybody that could elevate the program a little bit higher, it might be Coach Brannon. I think Mick Cronin did a great job at UC. I think Mick Cronin is a good coach. We'll see what happens at UCLA, but I think that it's possible Mick could succeed out there.
All right, to both of you.
At the time when Mick Cronin was hired, let's roll back. Hugs had been fired the year before. We had an interim head coach, Andy Kennedy.
Yeah.
Okay, Andy Kennedy, a longtime Hugs assistant. Mick had been a Hugs assistant, but he left the family. He went to go work for the Devil. In the UC fans' eyes, he went to go work for Louisville. Okay, he went to go work for Pitino. Then he leaves Pitino and goes to Murray State. Andy is getting all the support right there in Cincinnati. Hire Andy. Everybody's saying hire Andy all the time. It's ringing throughout Fifth Third Arena, the Merle Shoemaker Center. And Mike Thomas doesn't want to do that. Andy goes to Mississippi State during our Elite 8 NIT game against South Carolina, 6 o'clock tip-off, 5:40 in the afternoon. Andy Kennedy takes the job with Pete Boone and John Hartwell down at Ole Miss. I jump into a closet, call them, and I say, hey, did you guys really hire my coach a half hour before the game? They said yes. I looked at Mike, and I said, yes, we got to go with the plan. The plan was always to hire Mick. So they called Mick. Mike DeCourcy breaks that on the bottom line on ESPN, or ESPN breaks the sporting news and Mike DeCourcy's story to Cronin coming home. Mick Cronin's West Side Cincinnati. Okay, you know who else is West Side Cincinnati? Don Zimmer, Pete Rose. Hardcore, baby. Nobody was better for the Cincinnati Bearcats than Mick Cronin. He embodies what it means to have catitude. Okay? And at that time, you know, he wasn't universally received because people were really chapped about losing Hugs. So for Mick to come back to do what he did, had more success. Think they were a Final Four, like Hugs did, went back in the day. But he had more success than Honest Cincinnati. I mean, he's got to be the all-time winningest coach there. He went to so many, and look at the crap he had to deal with. A complete rebuild, Mick Cronin in Cincinnati basketball, academically, socially, basketball-wise, had one guy, Deontay Vaughn, one guy who was a scholarship player his first year. They were terrible, absolutely hard. And then to go from the Big East to the American, that's a different transition because you're recruiting different kids. Different kids will play in the Big East and they will play in the American. But he makes it work. And you know, I don't know if Brannon's the right guy. I know that Mike Bond's not having to pay any movie expenses. But we'll see. We'll see if he's a good fit.
Well, I can tell you this. I think
football coach now, Luke Fickell.
Yeah, Luke Fickell is a hell of a football coach. And Brannon, we cover them here at the Grueling Truth at NKU. The guy's a hell of a coach. I think Mick Cronin did a great job there, and you can't blame him for taking the UCLA job. But there's a ton of, let's just say, not very bright Bearcat fans that because Cronin hasn't been to the Final Four, wanted him gone anyways. And sometimes, you know, you get what you wish for, and it doesn't turn out to be what you wanted.
Yeah, well, time will tell. But, you know, good luck to everybody. I mean, that's the thing, because these jobs are hard, and it all comes down to this. If you can recruit, you're going to win. If you can't recruit, you're not going to win. And, you know, it doesn't matter how good you are drawing up plays. If the guys can't execute it, if you put the ball in the hole, man, you're going to lose games. It's all about
okay, wait a minute now, because, I mean, Alford could recruit, you know, and I got three questions now in a row here I'm going to ask. Alford could recruit at UCLA. He got pretty much anybody he wanted at UCLA, but he couldn't win. So I don't know. That's an exceptional statement to make. That you still have to be able to coach the game.
At UCLA, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yes. Yeah. No. 10-year deal. 10-year deal. 10-year deal at Nevada. Is that a smart move by Nevada to sign Alford a 10-year deal? Is that a good fit for him? And is Alford a good coach?
I don't know if he's a good coach. I mean, guy did a pretty good job at Missouri State. Guy's done a pretty good job out in the West Side before. You know, maybe UCLA was too big for him. I don't know. One of my good friends is a good friend of Alford's, Buzz Peterson. You know, they're as tight as you can get. And, you know, Buzz believes in him. So, you know, sometimes maybe guys don't want that thing. I mean, I think he did a fairly decent job at, was it Utah and at Iowa?
Oh, New Mexico.
Right? Was that where it was?
New Mexico.
So, yeah, I mean.
And we had Steve on last week. Steve was on last week on our show last week. We had Steve on. So, and Steve's a good friend of mine, too.
Newcastle, Indiana, right?
Yes, it is. Newcastle, Indiana. Home of the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, where I'm a member of.
God,
good for him, but I got to tell you, there's some real head scratches out there. First of all, I mean, Reno is, ugh. I mean, I went to Reno one time playing in a bracket buster game when we were in Akron, and we played against Mark Fox when he was coaching out there, and it was like, wow, it's almost like you just stepped into like a on Motor Lodge. It was like, I think we stayed at a Howard Johnson's out there. It was like we fought at that in 1959. I mean, it's just ugh. I don't know if there's. And then we had to fly out of Sacramento, so we took a team bus through the Donner Pass. You were just waiting, like, to get knocked over. I mean, it was just
not get eaten by the person next to you.
That's the hills have eyes.
Don't get eaten by the person sitting next to you. Yeah,
Cougars or something. It was just awful. I mean, yeah, you got a 10-year deal, but I mean, I don't know. You know, I don't understand 10-year deals. I don't understand giving people contract extensions when they don't win. They don't do something extraordinary. I mean, mid-majors are brutal at that. You'll see it where I was an AD in the Colonial Athletic Association. People all the time are giving people contract extensions because they get off to a good start or they get off to this and that and the other. They're so afraid, ADs now, that they're going to have to, do their job and make a hire. It's just so frustrating to watch. And then people want to win a press conference instead of win games. It's truly one of the funniest things to watch basketball.
Let me change directions here one time, and Mike, I'm going to go a little different direction here. I'm sorry.
I don't care what direction you go, Steve.
Mike,
as long as we don't talk about your damn ring.
We talked with Anthony. we talked with Anthony about Russell Wilson going to the Giants. He signs a 4-year extension for $140 million with $56 million of it in a bonus. Good move for the Seahawks, guys. Both of you. You guys are both, sports geniuses.
Yeah, I mean, he's a franchise quarterback.
I'm available. I won't count that money. Yeah, we could do that.
Do what? Go ahead.
He's kind of old. Go for it.
What do you think,
I didn't hear
Steve?
the question. Yeah, I think Seattle need to keep him. I think Seattle, the franchise, would have suffered dearly if they'd lost Russell Wilson. So I think it's a good move on their part. It's just a lot of money to spend on an extension. But that's the way the NFL plays. So anyway, all right, we got other things.
If you can't get Bo Callahan in the draft, stay with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, you can't get Bo Callahan. Yeah, Kevin Costner got him to take Bo Callahan.
Hey, that was a great movie, by the way. I love that movie.
I love Draft Day. One of the best movies of all time.
I don't know if it's one of the best movies of all time, Steve. But okay.
I want David
best sports
Putney
movies.
I happen to feel like it. Yeah. I want Putney.
There you go. All right, before we get into the AAF.
Oh, my God. Here we go with the NASCAR shit.
I know you worked for Richmond International Speedway.
Richmond
last
Raceway
two races. Richmond Raceway now. Okay, it's changed names. Whatever it is now. Bristol, which is a track that historically you were on a waiting list to get tickets. And then you come to Richmond, which is another great short track, and these are probably the best back-to-back weekends without throwing Talladega or Daytona in there with the super speedway races. Nobody's showing up. What's going on, Mike? What's happening?
Oh,
is it TV?
That's difficult to figure out. No. First of all, I mean, look at the schedule. You get Martinsville March 24th, then you're at Texas. Then you come back, Bristol and Richmond. You're in the same geographical area there 3 out of 4 weeks. How many people are going to use their disposable income to go to a NASCAR track to Martinsville, Bristol, and Richmond? You used to go to all three. Now you're choosing probably one of the three. People in the East Tennessee, they're going to stay in Bristol. People in West Virginia or western part of Virginia, southwest Virginia, central Virginia, they're going to go to Martinsville, and then Richmond is there at the back end. Richmond, we drew more people out of Washington, D.C. than we did out of Roanoke or out of Norfolk. Okay? So it's just a matter of, to me, they have 36 races right now. They've shaken up the schedule for 2020. They'll do a lot more for 2021 because the sanctioning agreements are up with the tracks. And my hope is that they do away with going to places like Richmond and Martinsville and
no,
even
don't
Daytona.
say that.
You don't need no. Let me finish. You don't need to go places twice. The circus doesn't go there twice.
Yeah.
Golf, tennis, they don't go there twice. You don't need to do that.
Right.
What they need to do is to open up, go back to a Rockingham. That was a great thing. Go to a Circuit of the Americas. Get more road courses in there. Go to Nashville. They're going to go there. Just know that. And cut back on the schedule. They need to start the schedule the week after the Super Bowl. Right now they take a week off because they do the most meaningless thing called the Advanced Auto Parts Clash. An absolute waste of time. Nobody even watches this stuff. Okay? They don't go to it. They don't watch it. It's a bad race. All you can do is destroy race cars, and they don't need that type of challenge. Start it the week after the Super Bowl, end Labor Day weekend in Darlington. Quit competing with the NFL or trying to compete with the NFL because you can't do it. And make it a more manageable schedule. And then do like the PGA Tour does. After they play the last major, PGA Tour is the smartest organization in sports right now because they've aligned their majors, Masters, PGA, U.S. Open, British Open, Tour Championship, right there.
April, May,
And
June,
then
July. Yeah.
And it made it work. And they're not competing with the NFL. They start their next season in the fall, the FedEx Cup and all that garbage. But you can do that. Maybe that's where you run something like the Xfinity Series, which is completely lost right now. You're running Camaros and Mustangs and whatever Camrys are running in Cup right now, and they have Supers in the Xfinity, but they're running the same cars. In fact, the Xfinity cars are faster, have more horsepower than the Cup cars. So you're better off running that series deeper in the fall and make it a developmental series like it's meant to be and cut the cost. If you go to a mid-level team like a Chip Ganassi Racing, it's costing them $30 million a year, guys. $30 million a year to run a bad car that is not at the top. Okay, as good as Larson is, he's not going to contend. And that's $30 million. I mean, our biggest sponsorship that we had at Richmond Raceway was about $1.2 to $1.5 million with Toyota to be our OEM at the track. Okay, we would have to sign almost 14 of those to go out and find that type of money. It doesn't exist. These guys are going bankrupt. Okay, and even if you have the money, like Hendrick, you're not winning. I mean, William Byron is doing better than Jimmy Johnson on average right now. I like William Byron; he's my cousin. But still, I mean, just having the money doesn't even guarantee you success. There's some real challenges there, but they have too many damn races. You got to cut back on that stuff. So
okay, so let's transition into this. Let's transition into this because it's going to take us into where we wanted to really talk to you about today. Is TV just kind of oversaturating sports?
I don't know. I mean, there certainly isn't any space on terrestrial TV. I was on the Big East and the CAA TV committee and was part of doing those deals. More in a support faction with my AD at Cincinnati when we were in the Big East, but I was on the TV committee at the CAA, and we left ESPN to go to NBC Sports Network because we couldn't get any space on ESPN. There's just not that space, and people aren't watching as much. I think there's too much of a premium. I was talking to a guy in the industry yesterday about this. Stadiums are too big. The right place for us to be in the Alliance of American Football was in an MLS-type stadium. MLS, they're not going to take over. Nobody's going to take over the NFL. I mean, it's by far and away the 8 billion pound gorilla. But there is just there are only so many hours in a day. People are busier now. They're not going to things. You can sit at home and have a great experience in your house. The best thing about working in spring football was I got to watch fall football from my couch. You couldn't pay me to go to a game in the fall. So right now, I mean, you have such an opportunity. Look at what you had on Sunday. Sunday you had Game of Thrones at night. You had the Masters going on. If you wanted to, you could, watch a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I mean, baseball's on, but nobody's really watching baseball in April. I mean, there's a hole for spring football right now. That's about it, though. I mean, and yeah, you can watch a lot of stuff on TV, but, this is a great stat, guys. Talking about spring football, it's a good transition. 78% of NFL fans don't watch anything else once the NFL season is over. That's why spring football can work. You just have to have a disciplined business approach to it.
Well, and when you look at that, the thing that stood out to me was, I think to do something like this, I've been involved with a lot of indoor football teams and leagues, and most of those have a tendency to get excited and not have enough lead time into what they're doing. And I think if you're going to start something like that, you've got to start it 3 years ahead of time with the planning. And with the AAF, I think the first time I heard about it was about this time last year.
Yeah, but just because you didn't hear about it until then doesn't mean they weren't working on it.
Yeah.
The people that were involved in the Alliance of American Football have been working on this idea for about a year and a half, maybe, from what I understand. And believe me, I probably know about as much as you do. And I'm president of the league, or was until last Tuesday. But it was a concept that was at least what they said. And Daryl Johnson on Pro Football Talk and the general manager of the San Antonio team, said it best. I'm not going to get into, who, what, where, why. But you've got to be disciplined in what you're doing. You focus on football. Okay, make the football good. Our football was good. We were the best team, 7-1. Best general manager in Tim Ruskell. Best head coach in Steve Spurrier. Great sales team. Number 2 in the league in attendance. Number 2 in the league in season ticket sales. Number 1 in the league in group sales. Our front office was strong. To this day, we don't have any fans that are coming back and blowing back on what our operations were, dealing with the fans. It was at the league level where things just fell apart. And were they focusing too much on technology? Was technology the reason they had any investors to begin with? Those are things that are going to come out in the wash right now because they spent a lot of money on football. They spent a lot of money on technology. And they didn't spend a lot of money on marketing, but it was still getting great ratings. I think that's the thing that I think you really look at one of the successful points of this AAF thing. Over 50 players now in the National Football League. 2 weeks after we disbanded, 2 weeks ago today. In fact, it was about 2 weeks ago right now that we got the text. We didn't get a text, excuse me. We got a tweet from Darren Ravel saying that we no longer had jobs. That's how we found out we didn't have jobs. But it was the organization level. You're exactly right. You got to be focused. You got to know what you're doing, and you can't worry about crowd size. It doesn't matter. You're basically building this for content. Content is king. And if you can get on digital platforms, it doesn't matter if you're on TV anymore. It really doesn't. It's nice to be on TV, but people absorb their content in so many different ways. You just have to be culturally relevant in the cities where you are, and then it will grow if it's good football.
So what was it? And we had you on earlier, and we were thrilled with what was happening because it looked like a great start. Was it the intent of this league to become what we call an NBA G League? And I'm just going to use that phraseology. Did you guys really, truly want to just be kind of a training camp or a understudy to the NFL where you could have players ready at your disposal, playing games, and do things like that? Was that the intent of the league, or were you really trying to just make it on your own?
It was never mentioned to me in any meetings that we wanted to be, officially aligned with the NFL. That was never.
Well, you're on the NFL Network. You're on the NFL Network. You're aligned with the NFL. You're on the
they're
NFL
separate from the NFL.
The NFL.
Yeah.
The NFL Network's not owned by the NFL. It's a licensing deal. So it's
right, they still control content, though. I'm sure they control content. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They don't. It's a license thing. I mean, just trust me. The National Football League was, they maybe facilitated some of that, but they weren't in control of that. Even down to the announcer choices and things like that. The Alliance of American Football was paying to be on TV. Okay? Paying to be on TV. So they were looking to get the most eyeballs onto their product and who would take their money. And then they tried to, go out and sell advertising to cover the cost every week. It's buying cover. So, I mean, you'll be on CBS for the opening game, CBS Sports Network, which is not rated, so it really didn't have any appeal to media people. You get the two weekend night games on Saturday night and Sunday night on the NFL Network, and then TNT came in. After they saw the success in San Antonio and Orlando in the first week's game, they saw the success, and the people would watch TV because it was great football. They wanted to watch football. They liked football. But, you know, it was never said that, you know, in the first, second, third season that we wanted to be aligned with the NFL Players Association. That was never part of the equation. It was the equation when, after week 2, there was a transition in the league. And then new ownership felt that was important, according to what I've read. I've never talked to Tom Dundon, for that matter. I've never talked to Charlie Ebersol. So, and I was a league president. So, I mean, it was just how this was a single entity league that worked from the top down. You know, what we were responsible for on the local level was sponsorships, ticket sales, branding with the community, getting out and making this thing work at the grassroots level, which I love to do. But, you know, all the marketing buys, all the TV decisions, all of the, ad placement, that was all done from, you know, league sources in San Francisco and in Tampa. And, you know, to me, you know, there's some pros and cons with that. But in the end, we can debate it all you want, but, you know, we had a glitch in week 2. A new guy came in, gave us 6 more weeks, and then decided he didn't want to play ball anymore. And, you know, it's his money. That's his decision. You know, all we had to do was keep doing right by our fans, and that's who I really feel for. I feel for our fans. Our fans paid for 5 games in Orlando. They got 3. That means 40% of what they bought, they didn't get their money's worth. And to me, they deserve their money's back. To the people who did good faith business with the Alliance and didn't get what they signed up for in terms of remuneration, compensation, or otherwise, they deserve their money. And that's just good, solid business, you know. You know, even Mr. Haney on the back of the wagon in Green Acres would run that deal.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Haney.
But you just made Steve excited because you brought
Mr.
up an
Haney.
old TV show. So,
Green Acres, I remember Mr. Haney.
if we did a show
There you
about
go.
old TV shows, Michael, Steve would be so giddy with excitement every day it would be sickening.
Me too.
I know, me
I'm
too,
60.
really.
As long as we include
I'm
family
60.
affairs.
I remember all of them.
What was that, Michael?
Oh, God, yeah.
Uncle
Buffy
Bill,
and Jody and Mr. French. And
Oh, I don't know.
Are
The
you kidding
family
me?
affair annoyed the hell out of me.
Oh.
No.
I Dream of Jeannie?
No.
Well, I
Don't
Dream
worry
of Jeannie
about it.
was good. I mean,
Hogan's
Bewitched.
Heroes?
There you go. Hogan's
Oh, yeah.
Heroes. Yeah.
Which Darren did you like best? That's the question. I mean,
I was never a fan of Hogan's Heroes.
Oh, come on. You got to like
it's a
Hogan's
great
Heroes.
show.
Anybody that
Yeah,
can
Bob-
take basically Nazis and turn it into something funny is pretty genius.
Bob Crane had a very dark lifestyle, so I kind of shy away from that one. But anyway, let's get back to sports.
All right, how about this? This is my question because we know there's an interleague that's going to start up in a year or so, and there's been previous leagues, and I've been involved with leagues like this where single entity and where one, basically head runs everything. Do you think that's the best way to do this, or do you think it's better to have your ownership in each city?
from the launch standpoint, it's a smart way to go about because you control the cost. I mean, and believe me, the costs are enormous.
Yeah.
The costs are enormous. I mean, just renting practice facilities. I mean, no team in a startup league is going to own their own facility.
No.
So everything you're paying, X plus 20%, plus 30%. You're paying up front. You have to buy all the practice pads. I mean, football, and I just know this from the college side, guys. I was the director of athletics, Senior Associate AD, ACC, Big Ten, SEC, Colonial, Big East. I mean, I've been around. Football is the most expensive thing you can ever do. I mean, if just the insurance will bankrupt you if you're not prepared. And in our case in Orlando, the powers that be, for whatever reason, didn't dot the I's and cross the T's because they didn't know that we weren't eligible for workers' comp insurance in the state of Florida, so half the season we had to live in Jacksonville and bless the Camden County, Georgia, the lovely I-95 hamlet of Kingsland to, do our practices, and it was like we were on like the world's longest bowl trip. And it was, that kind of was a sign that the organization wasn't there. But you know what? It wasn't our thing. We just kept our eyes on the prize. Every time something bad happened, our response was good. As long as we could muster good out of our lungs, we just kept going. And that was how Tim Russell, Steve Spurrier, and myself managed our three respective focuses. And could not be more proud of what we delivered back to this community that is outstanding. This is a football community. Spring football will work, but like you said, it's just going to take discipline, and maybe the second time around, I'm extremely hopeful. Can't wait for the XFL to kick off. They announced their Kevin Gilbride is their coach in New York today, and president coming in from the NFL level there, and somebody who's very experienced. They have half their coaches and half their presidents now named. And this is a league that has some prize and some real capital behind it. You don't have to worry about the money.
Yeah.
With Vince McMahon and Alpha Entertainment, the subsidiary of the company that he's created to run that, and Jeffrey Pollack running the business operation. Oliver Luck as the commissioner, Doug Whaley running the football operation. These are smart people that have been around, man. And they know how to run a brand. Is there anybody that's a better sports marketer, sports entertainment marketer than Vince McMahon?
No.
No. So the guy is an absolute. I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch and see how the XFL rolls out, and they'll do it next February. And good luck to them.
Yeah, and the thing is this: you guys did everything the right way. And I've been in this situation before. I've coached teams in indoor football leagues that go 9-2, get ready to play a championship game, and then all of a sudden we're told we can't play because the owner didn't pay the fees for the playoffs. And I know it is distressing as hell, but there's nothing you can do about it. But in the end, when you look back at this, you have to be proud of what you guys accomplished in Orlando.
Extraordinarily proud. I tell you what's the tough thing. The tough thing was getting a tweet at 12:30 2 weeks ago, and having to look 23 people in the eye that I had hired away from good jobs. I left a good job. And to know that we had 24 hours notice before we weren't getting paid anymore. We didn't know until the next day, after their date of termination on April 3rd, if we were going to have health benefits through the end of the month. I have one employee who has a newborn who needs surgery in May, and now he's going to have to pay Cobra, go into his pocket without a job to make sure that his daughter has health care. That's because we weren't given proper notice. I'm not asking for, there's some legal things going on right now. I'm not worried about that. I'm trying to keep focused on my future. I don't look backwards.
Right.
I just worry now about my people's future. And that's the frustrating thing. Coach Spurrier,
and of course,
Tim Russell, we got to find these people jobs.
That's the Warren Act you're talking about, where you got to get at least 60 days notice, where you're supposed to be let know before layoffs occur. Yeah, and they didn't do that. But the question is this: is the league shut down or is it suspended?
I don't know. I was one of the 18 presidents that I could tell you, I don't know who's running the show. I talked to my direct oversight who had some challenges, that we won't go into, that prevented him from being able to get in touch with me. But I talked to my direct oversight one time since this happened, and he was distanced away from the information. He was one of the top guys. So I don't know who's in control of what. The only thing I know is as of 5 o'clock last Tuesday, I wasn't getting paid any more. And as of 5 o'clock the previous Wednesday, my staff was out. And the one thing that we've all been focused on, Coach Spurrier, myself, and Tim Ruskell, is finding these people jobs. I can't worry about the alliance. I can't worry about the lawsuits. Those things have no interest in me. It's all about the future and where we go. But I would say that I don't think this league did everything the right way. I think there were some things that you can control in a single entity, and there's some things that you can't. And when you have, maybe, half a dozen people that are trying to call every shot in every city and to the micro details on some things, it's just one of those things that you look back and say, how are we going to make the big things happen if you're worried about 30-second radio copy? That's not something that, I doubt Roger Goodell is going over and writing, or the first commissioner of the MLS was not writing 30-second radio copy. And those are the kind of things, everybody kind of retreated into their own comfort zone, it appeared. And, like Moose Johnson said, it appeared that we were, funded for 3 to 5 years. That's what I was told. And when I was recruited to come into this league, we have 3 to 5 years of funding. We don't need to make money in year one. We need to set a strong foundation. We need to get out ahead of the XFL. We need to do A, B, and C. You're doing a good job. Keep it up. Move forward. Sell more tickets. Butts in seats. But
okay. So the XFL has Vince McMahon has committed $500 million for the first 3 years. Is that nearly enough money? Because it doesn't seem like it is.
I don't know. I'm not in their meetings. I don't know what their pay structures are. I mean, it seems like right now, if they could get a lot of equipment, things that normally would cost, let's just say, on a 10 scale, they can probably get it at a 5 scale right now, not at a 3 or a 4, because they can buy all the stuff for the same number of teams here. I mean, they can buy all that practice equipment. They can buy, the resources. Just the players are I mean, you're going to see a lot of the same players that were playing in the Alliance are now going to be in the XFL. And the number one thing I think that the greatest stroke of luck for the XFL right now, and any football guy would tell you this, is not about the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, the running backs, the linebackers, the defensive backs. It's not about any of those. It's about the big boys in the trenches, where football is won or lost. And the reason the Alliance of American Football had a illegal defense rule is because you couldn't rush more than 5 guys at any time, because they wanted to keep the quarterbacks alive.
Yeah.
And big guys, when you're a big guy in college, if you don't play football for 2 to 3 years, you're doing one of two things. You're either gaining a lot of weight or you're losing a lot of weight. Nobody stays in that game shape. You're either getting bigger or getting smaller. And a lot of people, probably 80% of them, get bigger. When they get bigger, they get slower. They lose their skills. Their bodies deteriorate because they're too big. And it's hard to find linemen. So I don't know where you could have found another 8 teams worth of linemen. People, and the XFL was going to sign people a little bit differently. And so, I think that's good for spring football. There's one league that can move forward and do some great things. And, you're going to be able to make some money and do it with a, what it sounds like, to a pretty big broadcast contract or series of those behind it. And again, the smartest guy in sports entertainment is going to be marketing the whole thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be with the guys at ESPN or Fox right now. I want to be with Vince McMahon. I mean, the guy has his own network. When people were laughing at him a few years ago, what was it, 8-9 years ago when he started WWE Network, they said, that's crazy. He is the smartest guy in the room. And
no doubt, yeah.
I mean, absolutely. And if NASCAR was run like the WWE, not in terms of just in how it's marketed and how it's sold and how it's projected with media, it would be so much better off. NASCAR is 20 years behind even college sports, which is 10 years behind the NFL and the NBA and the NHL and Major League Soccer. That's a tough comeback there, fellas.
Yeah, we just went to the Long Beach Grand Prix out here this weekend in California, in Los Angeles, and the place was sold out. So it's the only race I've seen where you couldn't get a seat anywhere I mean, we had passes and stuff like that, so we were able to go where we wanted to go. But to be out here and do that, but it happens so infrequently, and I don't think anybody does it better than Vince McMahon. But I still think the NFL is just the NFL, and people move on to other things. Now you've got the majors in golf coming up. You got baseball starting up. You got NASCAR starting up. You got tennis starting up. You got all these other sports starting up. Can football succeed in the spring?
Sure. Absolutely. Again, 78% of NFL fans don't watch anything but football. They're watching the combine. They were over there at Lucas Oil or wherever they did the combine this year. It was at Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, yeah. My hometown.
Look at the NFL draft.
People watch the stuff. I mean, the Alliance was smart that they ended their regular season concurrent, would have ended this past Sunday. And the championship game was on the same weekend as the NFL draft. The smartest thing would have been not to put it in Vegas. That was probably one of the more ill-informed choices that they made. But the smart thing would have been to put the championship game wherever the draft was going to. And then you'd have all the football people around. That would have been titanically smart.
Yeah.
If there was a true alliance with the NFL, that's what would have been done. But that wasn't done. Okay? And just things like that. That's a strategic and a tactical decision that you would have made. But, again, you had a small, group of people that were making all the decisions and not exactly on a timely basis because they were rushing to get to market before the XFL did in 2020. And that's why the Alliance of American Football made a lot of choices that they made.
What does this do for guys like Bill Pulliam, Troy Polamalu, Tony Dunson, and Charlie Ebersol? Does it damage their reputation at all because this thing just failed kind of quickly, miserably?
That'd probably be good for you guys to answer. I'm on the inside. I mean,
I
don't have a job right now.
My opinion is this. With Dundon, I don't think his reputation was really in sports anyways. I know he's with the Carolina Hurricanes. He's the main owner of that team, but I don't think he really makes any decisions on the day-to-day operations. And that's why when me and Steve talked about it when he said he was buying in, I didn't think that was going to be a good fit. It's good to have that much money, but money without knowledge is usually just pissing your money away.
Yeah, I mean, it's, again, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going on right now in terms of these guys. But, the only thing I wish is that I want the fans of the Alliance of American Football that, bought 5 games to be refunded their money for anything that they didn't receive, and that's 40% of the investment here in Orlando. And I would like for our corporate partners who were so very good to us in Orlando to be taken care of, and our vendor partners, UCF and to be taken care of. I mean, if you make a deal, you honor the deal. And, we made a contribution to the Special Olympics of Florida. I hope that is honored. But, I don't know because I truly don't know who's running the show right now. And my focus is on trying to find 23 great employees for the Orlando Apollos in our front office, the non-football side, 23 marketers and sales professionals and content generators and, office managers, trying to find them all full-time employment because they're outstanding people, the best I've ever worked with in 30 years.
All right, so. Yeah, and my good pastor, I would say the games I watched, do you agree with me? I thought the AAF had a good product. I thought the football was good. We didn't have the superstars. We didn't have Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, or whoever. But I thought the football was really good. Did you agree with that? That they had a good product? I thought
there was teams like the Apollos where it was really good. I thought you had half the league, I think, was really good. The other half, I think, struggled a little bit. That was the lineman that Michael talked about. And then, of course, quarterback, where you guys had a great quarterback at Orlando. Luis Perez is a good quarterback. But I think overall the big problem with this was, you had a handful of teams that did everything right, and then you had the people in the league that had no clue what they were doing. And I think if they would have just turned Orlando over to Orlando's president, Michael, San Antonio to San Antonio's, Birmingham, Memphis, and let those guys market the product in those cities, I think you would have seen the crowds be probably double what they were, because I think that they were kind of hamstrung.
Let me add this in. I want to correct something with all due respect to something you just said. I never thought that the people running the alliance, the people that I reported to, I never felt like they didn't know what they were doing.
I'm talking about the guy that ran them.
Well, okay, that's fair. But completely fair. And, 80%, but look at the stats. 80% of startups fail. And the startups in the sports industry is probably 95% of them fail.
Yeah.
Okay, so there wasn't any room for a mistake. And it's kind of like a race team. If you're at Hendrick Motorsports and you don't do well, there are a lot of people you can point at. If you're at BK Racing and you don't do well, you really weren't expected to do well. If you're, my friend is Joey Gase. I love him to death. But when Joey's in a cup car right now, he's not going to finish above 35th. He's not, because he's driving around, it's sloppy. And,
well, but you have different expectations. You have different expectations.
And that's it. And so I think the problem here was, I think everybody thought Moose Johnson, Pro Football Talk, go look at it. Moose Johnson talked about it on ESPN Radio in San Antonio. People were told something, and they planned to deal with that reality. And when that reality started to unravel, we were told, well, now we're going to do it this way. Well, now we're going to do it that way. Well, now we're going to do it this other way. And you were changing things on almost a weekly to bi-weekly basis. Big type of strategic things. And when you quit thinking strategically and you go almost exclusively tactical, you're going to make some errors. I bet General Ewell wishes that he would have taken the high ground at Gettysburg. But you make the call at the
time. He didn't take the left flank. Yeah, he didn't take the left flank. Yeah.
And you lose. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, I can tell you, this whole experience, and you can ask to a person in our organization in Orlando, would you do this again? They would say, absolutely, we would do it again. Was it a great experience? Yes. Do you believe spring football will work? They will tell you yes. Our fans will tell you yes. And that's where, I can't, other people and former colleagues in the Alliance are going to look to point this finger or that finger. Look, I'm breathing. I have my health. I'll find a new job soon enough. It'll be awesome, too. And we're just going to keep moving forward. I pray for everybody that was involved in the management. And by the looks of things, it's going to be a pretty bumpy ride for them. But you know what? That which does not kill us makes us stronger. Jocko Willnick, he's my YouTube inspiration. If I can manage good out of my lungs, brothers, I can keep going. I can improvise, overcome, and adapt, recalibrate, and re-engage. And, we'll just try to keep that thing moving forward.
All right.
Okay, two
Michael?
things here. One,
you got more?
Two things
okay.
here. Two things. Yeah, I got more. Hang on. Was Pickett the biggest idiot in the world on Pickett's charge? Was he? Now, I've been to Gettysburg multiple times, and I've been on the battlefield. Was he the biggest idiot in the world?
Who was that?
Pickett. Pickett's charge.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't.
300 yards across an open field.
I was thinking, who did I deal with in the Alliance named Pickett? But yeah.
No, I'm talking Gettysburg. Pickett's charge. What an idiot.
I've got you. I'm with you. George Pickett.
George Pickett, yeah.
Good general. But I'll tell you this. I run, not very fast, but I run to get medals in 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons. So I go up when I'm at Towson University. I drive up about an hour and a half northwest, and I go to Gettysburg.
Yeah.
Okay? So my dad...
I stood on a little round top. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
we've been there. And my dad...
Yeah, we've both been there.
And got me interested in this later in life, not when I needed to, and I got graded for it. I got D's in history. but I loved it. So I go up there on June 28th. It's what?
Cemetery Ridge.
10 days before.
Cemetery Ridge, yeah.
So I go up there on June 28th, and I'm in running shoes, running socks, microfiber shirt and all this stuff, and I go from the tree line to the rock wall. Okay, I run that. It took me 21 minutes. Okay, and then I look back and I said, "What kind of a dumb son bitch decided to do this?" And the worst was Devil's Den. Look that up. Anybody that was in the low part of Devil's Den and said, "Yeah, I'm going to charge up through these rocks and try to kill these guys up top that are shooting at me."
I would have ran behind the big.
Crazy. No.
The big red barn. I'd have ran behind it as fast as I could have and stayed there.
Well, how about this?
And
if I remember right, Pickett's corps commander was General James Longstreet, who told him that he didn't think no 15,000 men ever could take that position.
Well, that's what he said to Lee. He said that to Lee. But okay, I'm going to take my father's position on this. And if he wasn't a defense attorney, he would have been a history professor. Deep love of all the Catton novels and things like that. And to this day, they'll tell you if Stonewall Jackson hadn't been killed, that Pickett wouldn't have been up doing his little media tour up in the north, and every part of discipline would have been better. And I'm not going to get into revisionist history if that would have been good or bad. I'm just saying from a military standpoint, that was a tremendous loss for the South. And Longstreet begged Lee to go.
Because if he doesn't get killed, and I think Stonewall Jackson was one of the greatest military generals of all time. If he doesn't die in the wilderness, it could have changed everything. Because up until that point, the South was winning.
Yeah, Pickett. I think, Mike. They never found Pickett because he got obliterated by a cannonball, didn't he? Kind of coming across on his horse. I don't think they ever found him.
He's hiding in Argentina.
The other thing is that in the Ted Turner movies in Gettysburg, Pickett was played. What's his name? Stephen Lang played Pickett, and then he played Stonewall Jackson in the next movie, and it was incredibly confusing to me. How you go from Martin Sheen as Robert E. Lee to Robert Duvall.
Duvall,
And we're going to have that same thing right now. See how we just morph back into TV? We're going to have the same thing now with The Crown on Netflix, because seasons 1 and 2, you had, Philip and Elizabeth were, these other actors, and now with season 3, you're going to have all new actors as they get older, and it's just not going to be good. Guys and Generals, if I want to ever go to sleep, I'm really battling insomnia, I throw on 4 hours of Guys and Generals.
Guys and Generals, greatest movie, Jeff Daniels.
Most people think
Jeff Daniels
it was
played Chamberlain.
terrible.
Yeah, Jeff Daniels played Chamberlain, and I've stood on top of Little Round Top. I mean, I've got to do that, and it is when you know the history of. You look at the hill coming up and what they had to face. And how they were low on ammo, and we've gotten off on a way deep tangent here.
It doesn't matter.
But
Just go with it.
Goes.
We're fine.
Just go with it. That's probably one of the greatest historic moments of life. Was Chamberlain and the 20th Maine. I think it was the 20th Maine, wasn't it? Yeah, it was the 20th Maine. Yeah, and they fought off, and they basically saved the Civil War. They saved Gettysburg. By protecting, because they didn't let them flank, because it was the left flank. Protect the left flank. That's all they said. Protect the left flank.
But they would have been completely historically irrelevant had Ewell not screwed up. Ewell screwed up.
Ewell screwed up. Yeah.
And my grandfather would even say this because he was born in 1900. So his dad had fought, as he called it, the War of Northern Aggression. No, not the Civil War. The War of Northern Aggression is how it was referred to in my grandfather's. And, they were bitter. They were from North Georgia, and they were bitter. And until he died in, 2008, my grandfather died. He was out there. He was 108. and he was still angry. And, it didn't filter down through my dad and myself. I mean, we just liked it from the history aspect. But, yeah, man, it was a different egg back in those days. But what a great place. Appomattox Courthouse, another great place to run. I've run that one before. And you can truly feel – that's the great thing about the Commonwealth of Virginia is that it's just so chock with history from Revolutionary War to the Civil War, and then even I think the 27 active military installations in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and of course the biggest of which being around the Norfolk, Virginia Beach, that whole area through there, which is just an incredible mass of just some of the greatest humans on the planet. We're so very blessed by our military, and so proud to have been in that area when I was with Richmond Raceway and also at the University of Virginia earlier in my career.
In my Goodpaster, I'm reciting this all off my brain, not off of Wikipedia. I mean, I know this because I've.
So do I. What's your point? All right, see, this is the problem.
I know this.
Steve usually, unless it's about the Young and the Restless or the Kardashians, may have to look some things up for the show. He's just pointing out that he just, for the first time in a year, did something on the show without looking it up.
Okay, well, I have one final sports. I have one final sports question for you guys.
No Young and the Restless. Can we at least do the talk Days of Our Lives? Because,
how about this? Let's not talk about either one.
I'm a Young and the Restless.
I'll have to Wikipedia if we're going to talk about those shows.
Victor's a psychiatrist right now getting something done. I don't know what's going on there with that. But
move on.
Okay, here's the question. One last sports question for you guys, and throw in. Can single entity sports leagues survive other than the WWE? Because we've seen them happen before, and the AAF was a single entity sports league. Can they survive, or is it just too financially unstable to be able to do it? Both you guys talk it out now. Have it out.
I think this. I don't know what Michael thinks, but just from my experience, I think a single entity at the start, but I think you need to branch off quickly and find ownership groups. Or as a single entity, you got to put people in place like Michael and let them work and not micromanage them.
Right. Michael?
I would agree. I mean, the Major League Soccer did a great job, and they used it to maintain costs early on. And I think they've gone on now for, 23, 24 years? And so they have to be the most successful single entity league of all time. And, the different things that it helps you with, how you manage antitrust, how you manage insurance, and just curtailing the costs. I think the Alliance of American Football had made it to year 3, and it got to the point where the NFL CBA, and this is completely uneducated opinion, this is just my shot in the dark, but had they been able to make it to when the CBA was there, and it would have been a viable league, and they could have kept costs in check, that this could have been a very special thing, and that you could have had local owners there. But just like you have local owners with a McDonald's or a Burger King or a Wendy's, you can own the team, but this is how we roll. And, that would have worked very well. Spring football can and will work. Anybody that says that it won't are probably about the same type of people that Tiger Woods would never win again. There are always the people out there, the Stephen A.
I said Tiger Woods. I said don't start that, Mike.
Yeah, whatever.
Don't even go there on Tiger Woods.
I'll let you guys talk about that.
Yeah.
But single entity, a league can work, and spring football will work. And, I will be the biggest fan of the XFL when it comes out. I'll watch it every week. And, I will watch that before I'll watch about anything other than watching the great Eldrick Tiger Woods play golf. And I'll leave you guys with that.
All right. Michael, I want to thank you for coming on. I don't think anybody could have came on
Mike.
and said it any better than you did today. And,
Great job.
from what else we found out, I mean, if I ever have to get rid of Steve and I need a co-host, I would love to have you.
You got him. I'm watching Pick His Charge. I'm watching Pick His Charge on the computer right now. I'm watching Pick His Charge.
If
so
you
guys keep rambling.
If the fans out there or the listeners are in the market for a great Chevy, go see my friend Walt Kelsey at Kelsey Chevrolet in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, because he's my buddy.
Oh,
and,
there you go. You know what? That's where I bought my Chevy Cruze 2 years ago, was at Kelsey Chevrolet.
There you go. Well,
So.
Walt Kelsey's a great guy. His brother, Pat Kelsey, is the head basketball coach at Winthrop.
Yeah,
down
Pat,
South Carolina,
Pat played at Xavier, right?
Yeah, played at Xavier, was an assistant coach to Skip Prosser there and at Wake Forest. And Walt Kelsey, you don't get any better than them. And, car dealers are interesting folks, kind of like football owners. But, you want to make sure that you deal with someone that's on the up and up. Walt Kelsey's your guy.
All right. Michael, thanks a lot. We'd love to have you back on, especially during college basketball season, because I think you know more than Steve, even though he has a ring.
He does. I have a ring, too, but I didn't play. So
it counts. Send a picture to me, Michael, and I'll send a picture to Steve.
There you go, buddy.
All right. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
All right, guys. Steve, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up today. We'll have NFL agent Mac Lippister with us tomorrow to talk a little NFL.
Can we not talk
NFL
about the Clippers
draft.
comeback? The Clippers 31 points down. Can we not just mention that on our
You
show?
didn't watch it, Steve. You were watching The Young and Restless.
That's all right.
So how are you going to talk about something you didn't see, Steve? Are you going to Wikipedia it or Google it real quick?
No, all right. Blow it off. Let's go. All right. Wrap it up.
Well, see, I was watching baseball until like the last 5 minutes when I realized it was close. But I think it does call into question whether Golden State is vulnerable this year because in the past, a 23-point halftime lead would have turned into a 35-point win.
Yeah, I think they're very vulnerable this year. But I still think they're going to end up being okay in the end. So they had an injury.
I think the Rockets will take them.
Well, it's going to be a good match.
But, all right, real quick, I want to remind everybody the Sheridan Report will be here in a little bit less than an hour, 52 minutes. I'll be on with Bobby Sheridan for the top plays of the day. And if you listened to the show yesterday, you'll know Bobby had a really good day. And if you want to check out the Sheridan Report, make sure you come back here at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. We're going to wrap the show up for today. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube, wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. So for Michael Waddell, Steve Risley, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.